Hey, it's Editor Mac here. I ended up recording this whole thing, got it all edited down, and it was a 34-minute long video. So I'm going to cut it into two parts. I'm just going to release them 1 hour between one another. So you're going to see one and then you're going to see the other one. Sorry for the spam in your feed. I wish it wasn't annoying, but I think it's the best way to get it out to people because I doubt most of y'all are going to sit here for 34 minutes and listen to me rant. So you can kind of watch these little bite-sized pieces. So you're going to see a similar intro and a similar outro on both of them because it's effectively the same video, just two different sections of it. I hope that this makes watching the video better for you. Let me get out of your hair so you can just go back to listen to me rant about necro skills. Now that we know a big balance patch is coming just ahead of Season 1 on the 18th of July, I wanted to sit down and look at all of the Necromancer skills that we currently have and basically make my laundry list of changes I'm hoping to see in that balance patch, because I think that there are a ton of skills that just can't recognize their full potential right now or don't necessarily fit into any one of the metas as far as like good dungeon pushing builds or speed farming builds or whatever. And I would just like to see these things hopefully addressed in the patch. So I'm basically just going to go skill by skill. Whenever I find something I go, I kind of wish that this worked different, I'm going to stop and highlight it. I might be pointing out issues with skills that have bugs attached to them even still at this point. It might just be that like builds can't really do anything with them as they currently stand, etc. So it's all going to be based off my experience playing all these different builds, because other than just like a pure Thorns AFK build, I basically played every single Necromancer build that currently exists or that people have said like, hey, can you try to make this skill work? And I think I have a pretty decent amount of insight into, at very least, the places where they don't feel great and could be boosted a little bit. I actually think Bone Spear is fine as a skill. I know everybody screams that's overpowered. I totally get that. If you go watch anybody who has played multiple classes, you'll realize that like Bone Spear is just like pretty okay as far as a damage dealing ability. If you've never seen a Druid, I recommend go watching one of them hit the entire screen for like multiple millions of damage as opposed to just in a line. But you know, I'm not really here to convince you that Bone Spear is actually a finely tuned skill. It's mostly my issue with the complete invalidation of Supernatural Bone Spear due to another bug, I believe. So Supernatural Bone Spear is supposed to make it so that the Bone Spear that you hit, the first enemy hit by it, becomes vulnerable for 3 seconds. But if you've played a Bone Spear Necromancer, then you've almost certainly used the splintering aspect, and the splintering aspect's verbiage is very particular. It says that Bone Spear's primary attack, so the actual spear itself, makes enemies hit beyond the first vulnerable. So you see how there's a trade-off here, right? If you want to make the monster that you intend to hit vulnerable, you would need to use that Bone Spear modifier. But if you're using splintering, you don't have to worry about that so much, but that first monster should never be able to become vulnerable. But for whatever reason, splintering actually just applies vulnerable to every single target hit. There's no other caveat. It just hits everybody and it applies vulnerable to all of them. And I don't know why. Also, shoutouts to Zagreus right here. Great name, random person. Either Supernatural needs to say something else, or this bug, which I'm near positive is a bug, needs to be fixed. Because this would be a very valuable option over being able to get the maximum damage and additional crit out of having additional shards here. If I had to choose between the primary target that I'm hitting will actually become vulnerable, or I want to min-max my damage against crowds of monsters, that's a legitimate choice that you make on the build. Right now, you just don't make a choice. You just put splintering on and then you use paranormal because Supernatural is literally valueless. I actually think that the basic skills on the Necromancer is one of its strongest points because they all legitimately have use cases that are like unique enough and impactful enough. The first one that I generally have a problem with is actually based off of Reap. Now, the Reap skill itself is phenomenal, but I want to talk about Initiate's Reap. Initiate's Reap says that it instantly kills monsters who are below 5% life, and this doesn't work on players or bosses. So this can work on basic monsters, it can work on elite monsters. But monsters that are below 5% of their maximum life, you'll just automatically kill them. You might go, okay, sure, you can kind of close out a fight. But I want to talk about the use case where 5% of a monster's life is a relevant point where I need some type of additional damage source to close out the fight. And my major issue with it is that this is currently doubling down on an innate ability that the Necromancer just has. You have a 5% chance to automatically execute any monster based off lucky hit the moment that they're in the injured status or below 35% life. You might actually notice that you execute stuff all of the time. You didn't really think about it. And what's interesting here is that it's actually pretty useful. If you're trying to do like high nightmare dungeon pushing and you just have like the base monsters, but they have the increased life tag on them, executing those monsters can like significantly increase your overall ability to survive. So the ability to execute a monster isn't useless. It's not useless in any way, shape, or form. Not only do we have the innate ability to execute here, most Necromancer Paragon boards are also going to be picking up at least one rare node that also does the same thing. The rare color node says that you have a 20% lucky hit chance to be able to execute all injured non-elite monsters. So now we have up to a 20% lucky hit ability, and this is when you meet the requirement to get the double on it, to kill everything that's a non-elite automatically the moment that they are injured, so 35% life and below. But we also have our innate lucky hit ability to execute. So if both of those things fail to execute the monster, you're telling me that I also have Initiate's Reap that now gives me a chance the moment that they're below the 5% life? In what world am I fighting a monster that's below 5% life, is a non-boss, and I can't kill them with a regular skill, so I have to be able to kill them with my generator? Also, when we're talking about the other ones that deal with like injured status, it's a lot easier to see when a monster is at a third of their life, 33% of their life is below the injured status requirements. It is near humanly impossible to look at a health bar and go, oh, that monster is below 5% life. I should start reaping now as opposed to using any of my damage skills. I just think that Initiate's Reap needs to say like 15% life, maybe. At that point, I could see, somebody having run out of resource, needing to generate, and also going, I think they're at 10-15% life, and boom, I'm just going to try to execute them. And then it actually has a use case. I've made a lot of different videos that cover the blood skills because Overpower is just this like completely unintuitive system that once you understand how it works, makes you realize that you should never put in more than 1 point to either one of these skills. And you might say, well, what do you mean increasing the base damage here must increase the overpower damage, right? Like, let's go read the tooltip. Overpower damage bonus. So the bonus multiplier of your overpower damage being equal to your life plus fortify at time of cast, literally says the bonus damage dealt scales with the skill that overpowered. Scales with the skill that overpowered means that it's got to be reading the damage coefficient of the skill. What else could it possibly scale with? And if you've ever gone out and overpowered with Blood Lance versus overpowering with Blood Surge, you'll notice that your Blood Lance overpower does a significantly higher amount of damage than Blood Surge's either damage component. The problem being that putting more ranks into the skill for whatever reason doesn't scale like the base damage coefficient that's used in the calculation. So putting 5 points into Blood Lance doesn't increase your overpower damage by any amount. It only increases the base skill amount. So just in general, not only do I think that blood skill should just have a higher percent chance to overpower, like literally higher than the base 3% chance, they also either need to fix this bug where it doesn't scale with the base skill damage or drastically change the information in the tooltip, because if it's only the literal rank 1 base damage of the skill, nobody is able to intuit that. Like, you just have to sit there and test it and go, oh, putting points in is doing absolutely nothing. I guess it's not worth it to put points in. And that's what you actually find on blood builds, is that they will only put 1 point Blood Lance and come up here to Supernatural Blood Lance to be able to get the automatic overpower on the 7th shot. On top of that, I do think that blood skills in general are undertuned because the developers have over-evaluated the power of overpower. Now, for Blood Lance builds, being able to stack as much attack speed as possible, essence cost reduction, essence generation, and just hyper spam Blood Lances is the way to go, because the overpower damage is the only thing that matters, no question. But what it means is that you're completely disincentivized from actually increasing the damage of the skill and being able to rely on the base damage of the skill. If you remember, one of the first things they did to Blood Lance was they buffed it by a significant amount. This skill used to do so much less damage, especially at max ranks. But as it stands right now, other than being an overpower application tool, you are literally doing Z DPS on the other casts, waiting for the overpower proc to happen. And the last issue that causes is that there are so many dead stats on your build, because the only things that increase overpower on your stats, like the actual stats themselves, are overpower, willpower, health, and your ability to generate fortify efficiently. So that just kind of goes for all of the blood skills. Just keep that in mind if I'm ever talking about one of them. I also just think that they should be able to base overpower more often, and that putting ranks into them, and especially Blood Wave, obviously this is all the way down at the bottom, but Blood Wave's overpower damage is hilariously bad. It is like, I am confused by why it does so little overpower damage. And we'll also talk about a bug with this, which I guess we can kind of talk about right now. But Rathma's Vigor says that you get an automatic overpower once every 12 seconds as long as you've been healthy for all 12 seconds. Now, luckily, if you stop being healthy, it doesn't reset the counter. It just stops the counter. And then you have to heal and then it'll go back to counting. Here's the problem with it, and this is why I think there's actually many bugs holding back the Necromancer, as opposed to like legitimate design choices that are like intentionally limiting its ability. But Rathma's Vigor doesn't work with your Paragon board. So Bloodbath says that attacks that are guaranteed to overpower deal a 50% multiplier bonus overpower damage. So you just take your total overpower damage after all its calculations, multiply it by 1.5. That's very powerful, except this doesn't work with Rathma's Vigor. For whatever reason, the coding on Rathma's Vigor doesn't say that skill is guaranteed to overpower. It instead says that the skill does overpower. So you don't get this bonus. So it means that you can only benefit from Bloodbath, not only on just Blood Lance's automatic proc and just Blood Surge's automatic proc, but it does nothing for you on the 3% off chance that you happen to overpower randomly while doing damage, and it doesn't work with Rathma's Vigor. I don't know why it's so hyper specifically tuned to only those two skills working, but when you use Blood Mist on Rathma's Vigor to walk in and deal a ton of AoE damage, that doesn't get this bonus, because Blood Mist doesn't have an innate auto proc overpower stipulation to the skill at all. It can only overpower it via Rathma's Vigor, and the same thing for Blood Wave. I legitimately believe that like that's just a bug, and not only do I think that overpower itself just needs to be reworked in this game, but on top of that, the skills themselves that can overpower are just drastically underwhelming for the fact that they can overpower. The only other modifier in the core skills that I have like a quote-unquote problem with would be Paranormal Sever. They've buffed up Sever. Sever feels really good. Honestly, it's a phenomenal build, and while it can't super push into Nightmare dungeons like tier 100, or if it could, it would, take an incredible amount of time to kill every single pack of monsters. I just think that the length of vulnerability on Paranormal is just a little bit too short. Like the fact that I can put on Splintering Aspect onto a two-hander and have 5 seconds of vulnerable for free on Bone Spear, whereas Paranormal Sever, I have to hit the monster 4 times and then benefit from the vulnerable status, is just like a little bit too weak. I wish that this said 3, maybe even 4 seconds of vulnerability. And while I know that you can actually chamber your Sever casts, like you can cast them while nothing's around or moving between packs so that the first cast, which would actually be your 4th cast, will automatically apply the vulnerable, and then you can do a ton of damage to a monster. I get that. That's, min-maxing that the player can do. I just think that 2 seconds of vulnerability isn't enough to do anything more than hopefully empty the rest of your Essence Orb, because it's not like you could do this and then do some Corpse Explosion shenanigans, right? You kind of just have to hard commit to dumping your whole globe, because you only got 2 seconds. And then Hewed Flesh. Hewed Flesh has been a thorn in my side for a very long time, because if you read it, it says it generates a corpse and it's your damage and it's a skill that you have. So it's a lucky hit ability that should only be triggering off of your skills. And since it generates a corpse, you would think that it works with Necrotic Carapace when it says when a corpse is formed from your skills, you fortify, which would be one of the ways that the Necromancer could actually fortify in the majority of non-blood builds, except for the fact that Hewed Flesh just doesn't work with Necrotic Carapace. Now, that's intentional. And if you read Necrotic Carapace again, you realize that's very, very specific verbiage, which is kind of one of the issues with the majority of the Necromancer skill tree, is that all of the verbiage, I think, is a little bit too specific while simultaneously having non-specific guidelines. So in this case, lucky hit chance, right? It says lucky hit chance, but then also stipulates your damage, which means that things that deal damage multiple times can actually trigger this lucky hit multiple times. You might go, well, of course, that makes complete sense. Until you come down here to this lucky hit ability, which is actually only per cast of skill. Now it goes even further because Miasma Corpse Explosion doesn't only have a chance to apply Crippling Darkness on the first instance of damage. It can be any instance of damage over the length of the Corpse Explosion, and it's per enemy. So it's not even like it rolls once, regardless of enemy count. It's per enemy, but not the first instance of damage. We're getting a little bit lost in the weeds here. But basically, Hewed Flesh's lucky hit ability has a secondary conditional variable which relates to your damage, so it's able to trigger multiple times when you wouldn't typically expect that to be how lucky hit works. And then on top of that, Hewed Flesh is just like so required on every single Necromancer build, because at just about every single Necromancer build wants to be able to use Corpse Tendrils. And on something like Bone Spear, I can't really choose to generate corpses just by killing a monster if they won't all die in one hit. So I need to put 3 points into Hewed Flesh to be able to generate corpses to proactively Corpse Tendrils. I would rather it just be that Necromancers have the innate ability on dealing damage as a lucky hit roll to generate a corpse, and then you can kind of free up points from here, or you could double down and put more points here. It would basically help all of the builds that are really corpse reliant. It would make the early game feel a lot better, but that would basically be my two changes. One, I kind of wish Hewed Flesh just said every single skill has like the ability to generate corpses, and putting more points into it would increase that, as opposed to it specifically being a lucky hit ability, or just kind of moved off the skill tree entirely. And I also wish that this worked with Necrotic Carapace, so that we had any ways of fortifying that weren't very specifically Blood Drinker, and Corpse Tendrils generates blood orbs. Blood Mist, pound for pound, I've come like a long way around on this. I think that Blood Mist is ultimately a good skill for the Necromancer, although it sucks that you're pigeonholed into always using it, since it's our only unstoppable / immune option. One, I just wish that immune explained the fact that you gained unstoppable. The amount of times that I've had to explain to people that you can use Ghostwalker and Blood Mist to gain movement speed, and they go, no, you can't, it doesn't give you unstoppable. And I totally get why. If you look at the tooltip right here, it doesn't say that it gains you unstoppable. Immune doesn't say that you gain unstoppable. You just have to imply it from the fact that you also get the unstoppable icon above your character. So I just wish that they added that. And then the second part of it is that Blood Mist only deals damage X number of times, and then your increased attack speed actually like decreases the time between attacks. So if Blood Mist were to basically attempt to attack 10 times or deal damage 10 times to monsters around you, having more increased attack speed makes it happen super fast, which is good, and that makes sense, right? I have more attack speed, I use it to apply a big Overpower, damage dish out, and then I can proactively come back out of Blood Mist so that I can go back to dealing damage. My issue with it is that there are a lot of scenarios where you kind of wish you could drag Blood Mist's damage through more monsters, and since it slows you down, it's actually hard to travel through monsters. So if I deal all my damage within the first second of Blood Mist, there's 2 seconds where I'm just not doing damage at all. It's very, very unintuitive. And it almost feels like the increased attack speed is actually like a detriment to your ability to spread out your damage. I know that one's a little bit nitpicky, but I kind of just wish that increasing your attack speed, like getting a beneficial stat, would just mean that you ultimately did more damage instances with Blood Mist, as opposed to just doing them all up front and then for 2 seconds kind of doing nothing. There you go. Those are all of the changes, issues, and bugs that I hope are addressed in the Season 1 balance patch of the Necromancer. I think that a lot of these things, at the very least, would open up a bit of the design space, and also just make just like skill choice decisions a little bit harder on the Necromancer, so that you would be actually sacrificing something to gain something. Like pretty typical rewarding theory crafting type stuff, as opposed to, like you've heard me say before, just kind of use the 4 best skills in the game and then interchange whether or not you have a generator or a spender. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you hadn't seen any of these issues or hadn't heard about any of these bugs, let me know down below if you want me to cover anything in greater detail. Consider leaving a like on this video just so that the algorithm knows that, like, hey, this dude explains stuff in a good way and I want to see more of it. And consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I've drastically exceeded my expectations for growth on the channel since Diablo 4 has come out, and that's been phenomenal. Thank you so much to everybody. But I'm trying to hit 40k subscribers before the end of the year, which would mean that I quadrupled my viewer base in 1 year, and that would just be an amazing accomplishment for me. So again, if you haven't already, consider clicking that button. I would super appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it helped, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.